This is giving me goosebumps. I'm not gonna lie. It is literally what I wanted to hear. The way these two are having this conversation is absolutely scary but brilliant. This is freaky. This is so freaky. I love it. And I think this is going to be game changing. And if this video has not shown you at a very basic level, I didn't even put much thought into this. I literally pulled together some pieces of information that I would normally use for an interview and then put my CV and the job spec in and ask. The prompt isn't even well structured, in my opinion. I just threw together exactly what I wanted to get out of this. If you really put a little bit of extra thought into this, this can be extremely powerful, but at the surface level, it's done so much. NotebookLM by Google is a productivity game changer. If you are in a situation where you need to crunch lots of different types of information, maybe you're reading lots of PDFs, you've got books to read, videos to watch, audio to listen to, and you just need to distill all this information and get your thoughts together. NotebookLM can do that. It can bring all of these sources of information together using the power of generative AI, Google's Gemini 1.5 models. It reasons on this information that you provide, and it can help you distill it into reports, briefing documents, ask questions on it. And in this use case today, I'm going to talk about how you can transform your job search. So if you are preparing for an interview right now and you're trying to prepare research for the role, research the company, prepare for the interview, all of that information can be brought together in NotebookLM, and you can within minutes have a distilled, concise, all the valuable information that you need to be successful in the interview. So this is a real game changer if you're in the job market right now and you're looking to prepare. At the same time, you have to manually look for your CV and look for experience matching the job spec. You don't have to do that anymore. You can use NotebookLM to compare your CV with the job spec, with also the company's information and latest projects that they're working on, merge it all together and have concrete examples to go into the interview. This is absolutely game changing. So if you want to know how to do this, stick around in this video and we're going to talk through an example of actually applying for a role and actually using NotebookLM to prepare for that role. So simulating that effectively. So firstly, a very brief tour of the features of a NotebookLM just to get you up to speed with it. You do not have to be a generative AI master or know AI to do this. This is very consumer driven experience. It's really just about making you more productive and saving you valuable time, which is really important. So if we go into this and look at what NotebookLM does, it's really quite impressive. So you can take multiple sources of information, as I mentioned. So PDFs, YouTube videos, which I'll get to in a second as well, your documents, but also any audio clips or snippets from websites. This is what is multimodal. Multimodal is effectively different modes of information that you can add to this, and it gives you that power to bring it all together and gain insights from it, which is actually that's what it says there. So you gain insights, which is absolutely incredible. I've used this for many months now. Actually, if those of you who do not know me or this channel, I run a product and engineering team at one of the world's largest investment banks, and I build generative AI products, and I've built a very similar tool to NotebookLM actually, and this is just incredible to see Google do this natively, and it's really impressive what they have done, especially with the audio features, which we'll get into later. But yes, this is a real game changer, experimental tool, so do bear that in mind. It is experimental, but you can gain so much out of it just from the accuracy that I've witnessed over the last few months of using this tool. So let's get straight into using it. So what you're going to do is first of all, click on try NotebookLM. If you haven't signed up to NotebookLM, you will be prompted to register with your Gmail account. But what you can do is log straight into it if you've got a Gmail account. I've already got a notebook set up, but effectively this would be blank for you if it's the first time you're using it. You can create as many notebooks as you want, but think of these notebooks as individual areas where you're going to add knowledge to them effectively. So if I create a brand new notebook, which I'll do here, the first thing it will ask you to do is add sources of information. So in this scenario of a job search, which is what we're doing, we're talking about interview prep. Say I'm going to use this job that I found here that looks rather interesting at City for a tech product manager role. So I'm interested in applying to this role. As an example, I want to add this role in firstly as my first source of knowledge, because this is going to give me all of the information in terms of what it is I need to look for in a job role. And usually I would go through this manually, and you're probably doing this now if you are actually actively looking to prepare for an interview. You'd be looking here and seeing, actually it says here executive level communication. So right, I need to find examples in my CV or experience of that. Managing KPIs and putting together KPIs. I can also see some keywords here around strategic view and looking at long-term planning. So how have I done that in the past? Design and platform design also comes up here, but also domain knowledge, working with engineers and different types of teams, leveraging user feedback. All of this is what I would do manually. I'd look at this, find the keywords, and then try and find a way to map this to my experience so that I'm prepared for the interview. But now NotebookLM can do this for me. So I'm going to take this URL and copy it. I'm going to go to my untitled notebook. And as you can see here, you can put multiple sources of information in. You've got Google Drive, which you can use for docs and slides. You can also put a website or a YouTube video, which is really cool. I'm going to add one in a second to show you, and just copy some plain text in as well. So what I'm going to do is add a website, which was the job spec. So I'm going to paste that in, put the job spec in there as well. What I also want to do is add my CV, which I can do straight away. It's going to give insight, and that was very fast. It was really fast at reading that page and giving some insight into it. We're not going to look at this right now because we need to add all our data sources first. So carry on the left here, top left, add another data source in. If you are thinking about adding data sources like Word documents and PowerPoint files, you can't do that natively as they are. What you can do though is convert them to PDF, which I recommend you do. Obviously PDFs are supported. To do that, if you've not done that before, when you're printing a Word document and you go to the option to print it, there is an option to print it to PDF, which effectively creates an electronic version of it. You can do that even for PowerPoints as well. Convert those to PDFs and then upload them in here. That's a great way. That's what I did for my CV, which I'm going to upload into this as well. My CV uploaded as a PDF, match that against the job spec that we've just put in there as well. So that's what you can do. And with YouTube as well. So I am preparing for this product manager interview. So I want to know all about product manager interviews effectively. So I type that into YouTube here. This video, top 10, looks like it's doing well. So I'm going to take that link, actually copy that link address, and I'm going to put that in to my notebook as well. So paste that in there, insert. So that's another source of information. And whilst you're looking for different sources of information, you also want to look at the website. So this is a role at Citigroup. So what I'm going to do is also look at different sources of information for Citigroup. So here, what I normally do when I'm looking for a job and or interviewing for a role, I should be specific, is that the first thing I always look at is the annual report. So the annual report, either the web version or the PDF version of the annual report, will give you real insight into the company, what they're looking to do. And that's all really condensed in the annual report. So you can download that PDF and add it to the notebook. What I also like to do is look at their websites in terms of their values. You need to look at the vision of the company, the values. This is their values, why City, what are their benefits effectively, and also how they value diversity and inclusion, and all of those good things that you need to mention in an interview about the value statements and the strategy as well. So that's something that's really important to do. You can pop all of these URLs in. I'm not going to bother reading them. I'm going to just pop them into the notebook, which I'll do now. So coming across here, going back to add sources, and adding another link as a website and pasting that in. So you continue to do this for all of your sources of information. So as I mentioned, you're going to use a strategy and vision of the company you're applying for. You've used a job spec, you've put your CV in there. It's also good to look at some latest news or latest results. If there's a website for that, pop that in there, or the file, the PDF. I've seen some really notable news articles in their news section here. So we've got the city launching a digital trade solution, which sounds exciting, and also their developer portal, because I'm applying for this tech product manager role, so to speak. It's all about the engineering and the technology side. So I'm focusing on technology related news articles that I've found, popping them into NotebookLM as well. So as you do this, you're going to end up with quite a significant amount of information in your notebook. So I've got a notebook that I prepared already with this information in it. So here you can see on the left, I've got my CV, I've got the job roles, all those news articles. And if you're finding it hard to see this, you can't really see the URL here, but what you can do is rename it. So you can see that this is the earnings for Q3. So if I rename that, and I can just call this one actually Q3 earnings, it's just easier for me to see all the different sources of information that come up here. And this one is the annual report. So if I rename that one to annual report, that really helps me with trying to just see the different sources of information. With the websites, it's taken the titles of the websites already in there, which is great. And also, if you had any YouTube videos, it will do the same. So what can you do with all this information? Now, you spent this would only take you 5 to 10 minutes to do, if that, to just pop all of these URLs in here. What happens is you're prompted with this notebook guide at the bottom here. So at the bottom here, you see a notebook guide. Before I get into that, what you see here, this is where you can create the answers that are populated by the notebook. They appear here. I've got a test note here, which I can actually delete, which I just populated as well. But these are effectively the notes that appear, the answers, and you can save them. And I've saved a few of these just to show you in this video as well. But what you can do is just create new notes. And every time you are happy with the response, you can save it and they will appear here as notes. When you click on them, you can see the notes, actually, the responses that have come back from Gemini and how it's condensed all of the information. And I'm going to go through this in more detail, but this is absolutely phenomenal how it's done this. When you click at the bottom here, you can see there are 10 sources of information, and these are my 10 sources that I've actually added. And you can start either typing by asking questions and telling Gemini what to do, telling the model what to do, or you can use some predefined objectives. So here, for example, you can just get a briefing document on all of this information. So let's go ahead and do that. By clicking this button here, it's now creating a new note in my City interview prep notebook, and this new note is going to be a briefing document that is going to be fully compiled with all of the key points from across these sources of information. So as it's doing that, hopefully it doesn't take too long. And that wasn't too long, actually. It was literally seconds. But what it's done here is taken my CV, it's taken bits of information from the different PDFs I've added, and also the websites, and I can see all of City's main themes, what they're going to be focused on for the shareholder here, their growth drivers, their key facts and figures, which is incredible. It usually takes me a while to go through and find some key facts and figures. It's always good to say those in interviews, which is really great to have. The opportunities, that would really make me stand out in an interview, to know what City's opportunities are. And that is great if I can show that I know that. It shows I've done a lot of research. Their challenges as well, and their next steps, what is next for City. So in the briefing document, it's actually given me quite a lot of information to feel confident that I've done research into City, which is really great. So that I can keep that, and what you can do is it saves it, but then you can obviously check that and delete it if you do not want to keep it. So the next style of information, the next thing that you can do here is create a study guide. So obviously, if you were doing a study scenario, like you're researching for university or for college or anything that you're doing, you're a student, that would make sense. But let's just generate this anyway in this interview prep scenario and see what comes back. What comes back is quite exciting because there are some key terms in there. So if you are, for example, not from an investment banking background and you really want to work at Citi and you really want to do this tech product management role, this will help you just get to grips with some terms that are going to come up back from the model, and also the information, which is really good just to have in your mind. It will help you feel comfortable in interview knowing some of those key concepts. So it does that here. So let's create and look into this here. So right now what we've got is Citi's key concepts, which is actually really good for me to know for the interview, actually, that they're focused on simplification and digital focus. That's great. Their mindset is very global in nature. And this quiz, the questions here are things that I'd want to know the answers to. And it actually gives me the answers to those as well, which is really impressive. So having to win in a digital world, what is Citi's plan? That is something that I need to know because this is a tech product role. Actually simplifying the bank down and focusing on customer needs. That helps me. That really helps me because this is a product manager role, and knowing that they want to be client centric is really good for me. It's really good to know that actually being a product manager in this company is going to be worthwhile endeavor to go on. The questions here as well can be really detailed, but then the glossary of terms is really cool because what I'm going to see here are terms that I'm not savvy with because I'm not, an investment banking nerd and know all of these financial services terms. So looking at this here, looking at the type of what a credit derivative is, it's just good to know some of these terms. So this could be proved quite useful for me as well to understand a little bit more about the industry in which I'm applying to this role. So that's really good to have. So let's get really specific here. We want to start getting into this technical product manager role and getting some good question and answers out of the model based on all this information. So what you're going to do is actually talk directly to NotebookLM, start asking for some very specific information. So I've actually popped that in here in an interview question here. So the question is, I am preparing to interview for the position of SVP Tech Product Manager at Citi. Use the job spec and my CV to map my experience to the role, find examples on how I can be of value in the role, provide key points that I would need to know about Citi, product management, and the sample interview Q&A that can come up. Provide some questions that I can ask the interviewer too. So that's what I wrote to the model. And I've actually written this out a few times. So I'm trying to compare the results. But effectively, what comes back is a real concise, detailed guide for me to manage my interview at Citi. So here, it's looking at my CV and it's looking at the job spec, and it started to show how I match the job spec, which is fantastic. Here, it's showing even the sources of information. So if I click here on this, it's actually going to bring up my CV and show where in my CV I've said that I build 0 to 1 products and I can do storytelling, and I've got examples of those as well. But it's giving you the citation points as well, which is absolutely amazing to do. And even if I just hover over it, it shows me those. I don't have to click on it. So here it's showing me even in the job spec where it's asking for a particular set of skills, and then it's showing where I align to it. This is absolutely fantastic. It's showing me where I align. And if I read through this, I can get a really good, concise understanding of how I match and learn about that as well. Where I can be of value, and I really want to bring these points up in the interview, that I accelerate transformation. I champion generative AI. Yes, that is correct. I am a generative AI product leader. So this is great. It's got that in here, but also about the high performing teams that I build, which is great as well. So it's brought all of that out of my CV and mapped it to what Citi's looking to do, which is contributing to Citi's talent strategy, which is actually quite important as a product manager to do that. Citi's key points, I know about their vision here, their different businesses. It's actually given me those, which is amazing. Services, markets, banking, wealth. This is incredible. But also the product management fundamentals. As a product manager, I know that you've got to be customer obsessed, data driven, agile, and strategic. it's got those here, but then also giving me example questions and answers. So this is really giving me quite a lot. If anything, at an absolute minimum, if I did not have time for an interview and I'm running for about 5 or 6 different interviews, this is going to be an absolute game changer, saving you so much time in here. I've actually run this question a few times to see the differences, and it has brought back slightly different results each time, which is interesting. So here in my first run, it's given me different questions and answers, which is quite interesting. So you could run this a few times and get different answers and questions back, which will help you, generate more responsive. That's what you're wanting to do. But in a nutshell, this is completely game changing. And all of these are saved actually in your notebook as well. So when I start typing again, it will have my conversation history and I can save that as a note, which is really good. So the icing on the cake is that if you don't have time to sit and read and you're really on the go, say you're commuting, you can actually create an audio or overview, a podcast. It simulates 2 hosts talking about this information. So when I generate this, it could do that on the information, generate the podcast. But what I want to do is actually give it some focus. So maybe I'll put that exact prompt in that I used before. Let's see what happens. I'm going to put that exact question in about the interview and let's generate this and see what it's like. It actually took a good 5 minutes to prepare.
Of Citi, their 2023 annual report.
Some fascinating stuff in there.
Did you know they facilitated $1.2 trillion?
Trillion with a T.
In affordable housing and sustainability bonds?
Serious impact.
So we'll start by aligning your experience with what the role needs.
Right.
Then we'll explore Citi's business.
The parts that matter most for this role.
And then we'll prep you for those interview questions.
Give you some smart answers.
And even some questions to ask them.
That's right.
Okay, so let's start with your CV.
I see you've led tech teams.
Yeah.
Launched successful products.
Hopefully.
And you seem to have a strong grasp of user needs.
Well, I'll try to.
All essential for a tech product manager.
That's good to hear.
But
this is giving me goosebumps. I'm not going to lie. It is literally what I wanted to hear. The way these two are having this conversation is absolutely scary but brilliant. And the way they are talking about the interview, and I'm so hooked. I could listen to this. This is just 14 minutes long. And I'm just going to forward it in and see what else there is. But 14 minutes, I could be commuting or just getting breakfast ready and listening to this. This is freaky. This is so freaky. I love it. And I think this is going to be game changing. And if this video has not shown you at a very basic level, I didn't even put much thought into this. I literally pulled together some pieces of information that I would normally use for an interview and then put my CV and the job spec in and ask. The prompt isn't even well structured, in my opinion. I just threw together exactly what I wanted to get out of this. If you really put a little bit of extra thought into this, this can be extremely powerful, but at the surface level, it's done so much. Let's forward it along a little and see where the real value is as well, because that's pretty mind-blowing so far. So let's try this section here.
Exactly. Remember, cultural fit is a two-way street.
Meaning?
You're also evaluating whether Citi is the right environment for you.
Okay.
So be ready with insightful questions to gauge the company's culture.
Their work-life balance.
And growth opportunities.
Okay, turning the tables time.
All right.
What kind of questions should I be asking them?
Avoid generic questions that Google can easily answer.
Right.
Focus on questions that show you understand Citi's business.
Their challenges and ambitions.
Exactly. Since they're heavily into digital transformation,
Right.
you could ask, what are the biggest obstacles Citi faces in implementing new technologies?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It shows you've done your homework.
And that I'm genuinely interested in their specific challenges.
Exactly. You could also ask, how does Citi measure the success of its digital initiatives?
So I'm thinking about impact and aligning my work with their goals.
Right.
See, that right there is real secret sauce of this NotebookLM there. Getting into specific questions, making me think about those questions as well so that I feel prepared. This is incredible. This is such a good starting point for an interview prep. I'm absolutely blown away. And this is something that I think everyone should be using when they're preparing for an interview at an absolute minimum baseline. Within 15 minutes, you are up and running with some of the key information. And this podcast is just the icing on the cake, really. It firstly gets you really engaged because of the way they're talking to each other, the AI hosts, but also they are actually covering some key areas and really honing in on the job that I'm applying for. And that actual prompt that I put in for this, customizing this AI podcast was not even that considered. It was very generic. So if I was more specific, I'll probably get something very specific out of this AI podcast as well.